Alex had always dreamed of a better life, but the reality was different. He worked long hours as a waiter at a small local restaurant, the kind of place where the floors were always sticky and the tips barely made a dent in his bills. Every shift felt like a grind, but Alex kept going. He didn't have much choice. His rent was due, the car needed repairs, and his savings were non-existent. He often found himself staring at his phone, hoping for a message from a friend or a job offer, but it never came. Every night when the restaurant closed, he would walk home alone, tired and defeated, thinking, maybe tomorrow will be different. On this particular evening, the restaurant was packed. The noise of chatter and clinking glasses filled the air. Alex moved between tables, trying to keep up with the demands of the customers. His feet hurt and his head was spinning, but he pushed through it. He needed the money. He needed something to change. It was a busy evening, the kind of night when everything seemed to happen at once. Alex was rushing around, trying to keep up with orders, refills, and the never-ending requests from customers. It was chaotic, but he had learned to navigate the storm. Then he saw him. A man walked in, tall, well-dressed, and oozing confidence. His expensive suit and polished shoes immediately set him apart from the rest of the crowd. The man looked around, scanning the room, and his eyes landed on an empty table. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight to it, taking a seat without waiting for anyone to approach him. Alex's first instinct was to serve him. He knew someone like that would likely leave a good tip, but he didn't think much beyond that. He was too tired to care about much else. He took a deep breath and walked over. "Good evening, sir," Alex said, forcing a smile. "Can I get you something to drink?" The man looked up from his menu and smiled back. "A water, please," he said, his voice calm but firm. Alex jotted down the order and turned to leave, but the man spoke again. "Actually, I'll have a glass of wine instead. Red. And something to eat. What do you recommend?" Alex hesitated for a moment. "Our special tonight is the grilled salmon," he replied. "It's fresh, and it's popular." "Sounds good," the man said with a nod. Alex quickly returned to the kitchen to place the order. As he passed by, he couldn't help but notice how calm and composed the man seemed. He didn't seem like someone who had a care in the world. But little did Alex know, this brief exchange would be the start of something he never expected. As the evening wore on, Alex continued his rounds. He refilled drinks, brought out food, and checked in with customers. Despite the rush, he kept his eyes on Thomas, making sure the wealthy man was well taken care of. By the time dinner was over, the restaurant was quieter, and Alex was finally able to take a breath. He went over to clear Thomas's table. The man looked up at him, smiling. "Everything was great," Thomas said, his tone warm. "Thank you." Alex nodded. "Glad you liked it," he replied, gathering the empty plates. Just as he was about to leave, Thomas reached into his wallet and pulled out an envelope. He handed it to Alex. "Here," Thomas said, "for your hard work tonight." Alex hesitated. He'd seen tips before, but this felt different. He opened the envelope, and his eyes widened when he saw the amount. It was far more than he ever expected. "Sir, this is too much," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. Thomas shrugged. "You've earned it. Keep up the good work." Alex stared at the money, feeling a rush of relief. He hadn't had a tip like this in months. In fact, it was more than he'd made in a whole week at the restaurant. He wanted to protest, to say it wasn't necessary, but he couldn't. The weight of the tip felt like a small miracle. "Thank you," Alex said, his voice trembling. Thomas smiled again. "You're welcome. Take care." As Thomas stood to leave, Alex watched him walk out the door. For the first time in ages, Alex felt a small spark of hope. Maybe things were finally turning around for him. Weeks passed, but Alex couldn't forget that night. The tip had made a difference in his life, giving him a little breathing room. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel the weight of constant stress on his shoulders. He was able to pay some bills, buy groceries without worry, and even save a little. But life, as always, kept moving forward. The restaurant was still busy, and Alex was still working hard every day. Things weren't perfect, but the small relief from that night gave him something to hold on to. He couldn't shake the feeling, though, that he hadn't seen the last of Thomas. One evening, just as the dinner rush was beginning, Alex looked up and froze. There, standing at the entrance of the restaurant, was Thomas. His sharp suit and confident demeanor stood out in the crowd, just like the first time Alex had seen him. Alex's heart skipped a beat. What's he doing here? He wondered. Maybe he was just passing by. But no. Thomas spotted Alex and walked straight over to his table. He smiled and sat down without waiting to be seated. Back again? Alex asked, trying to hide his surprise. Thomas chuckled. I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing, he said, glancing around the restaurant. Looks like business is booming. Alex nodded. Yeah, it's been busy lately, he replied. How are you? I'm doing well. The company's growing, Thomas said casually, though there was something in his tone that made Alex think there was more to the story. Alex went to place his order, and this time the conversation felt different. Instead of a simple exchange, they talked more. Thomas asked about Alex's life, about his struggles and his dreams. Alex found himself opening up in a way he hadn't with many people before. He told Thomas about how he wanted to leave the restaurant business, how he wanted to find something more. When the meal was finished, Thomas looked at Alex with a serious expression. Alex, I have something I want to discuss with you, he said, his voice lowering. Meet me outside after your shift. Alex's mind raced. What could Thomas possibly want to talk about? Was it about the tip? Did I say something wrong? But curiosity got the better of him, and he agreed. After the restaurant closed for the night, Alex met Thomas outside, where the quiet street was illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights. I've been thinking, Thomas began. You've got something about you. You've got drive, a strong work ethic. You're not like most people I meet. Alex shifted uncomfortably. What do you mean? Thomas paused for a moment, then continued. I want to offer you something. A job, a chance to do something bigger than this, he said, gesturing to the restaurant. Alex blinked in confusion. A job? What kind of job? I run a tech company. I could use someone with your attitude, someone who understands hard work and dedication. I think you could really do something special in my company. Alex's mind spun. A job? With a billionaire? He barely understood what Thomas was saying. I don't know, sir. I'm just a waiter. I don't have any experience in that field, Alex said, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Thomas smiled. That's the thing. You don't need experience. I see something in you. You've got potential. Take a chance. Meet me tomorrow, and we'll talk more. Think about it. Alex stood there, stunned. A job at a tech company? The idea seemed impossible. But Thomas believed in him. He didn't know what to say. I'll think about it, Alex said finally, his voice shaky. Thomas nodded. That's all I ask. The next day, Alex couldn't stop thinking about what Thomas had said. A job at a tech company? It felt like a dream. He'd never even considered working in that world. He wasn't sure if he was qualified. What did he even know about technology or business? But there was something in Thomas's eyes that made Alex think twice. Thomas had seen something in him, something Alex didn't even know he had. Maybe he was worth more than just being a waiter. Maybe he could do more. Alex barely slept that night. His mind raced with possibilities, with questions, with doubts. He had to meet Thomas again, to hear him out. But what if it was a mistake? What if he wasn't cut out for something bigger? When Alex showed up at Thomas's office the next morning, he was nervous. He stood outside the building, looking up at the tall glass doors. Everything about this place screamed success. The polished floors, the modern design, the smartly dressed employees hustling around inside. It was a world Alex had only seen on TV. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Inside, a receptionist greeted him and pointed him to a meeting room. Alex's heart was pounding in his chest. He had no idea what to expect. When Thomas entered the room, he was his usual calm, confident self. He shook Alex's hand and gestured for him to sit. Thank you for coming, Thomas said, taking a seat across from him. I know this is probably overwhelming, but I believe you have something special. I've seen it in you. Alex swallowed hard. I don't know if I belong here, he said quietly. I've been a waiter my whole life. I don't know anything about business or tech. Thomas smiled. That's the thing. I'm not looking for someone with experience. I'm looking for someone with potential, someone who's willing to work hard, to learn, and to grow. You've got the drive. You've got the mindset. That's all I need. Alex felt a lump form in his throat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was this really happening? I can teach you everything else, Thomas continued. You'll start small. A position in operations, maybe. But if you prove yourself, there's no limit to where you can go. I've built this company from the ground up, and I can show you how to do it too, if you're willing to put in the effort. Alex's mind was racing. This was a chance he couldn't ignore. But he still wasn't sure. I don't know if I'm ready for something like this, Alex admitted. Thomas leaned forward, his expression serious. I've seen people succeed because they were willing to take a chance. You don't need to have all the answers right now. What you need is the willingness to try, to step into the unknown. That's where the real growth happens. Alex sat there, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts. He had never imagined he would have this opportunity. But the more Thomas spoke, the more Alex realized that this was his shot. This was the break he had been waiting for. After a long pause, Alex nodded slowly. Okay, I'll give it a try. Thomas smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. Good. I think you'll do great. Time passed quickly. Alex dove into his new role at Thomas's company, unsure of what to expect, but determined to make the most of the opportunity. At first, everything was overwhelming. The pace was faster than anything he had experienced in the restaurant. There were meetings, deadlines, and projects that required attention, but Alex adapted quickly. Thomas had been right. He had the drive. He was willing to learn, and he gave everything he had to each task. Soon, Alex began to understand the business world in ways he never thought possible. He learned about operations, strategies, and technology, things that felt so foreign to him at first. Every day he worked hard. The feeling of accomplishment that came with completing a task, solving a problem, or making progress was unlike anything Alex had felt as a waiter. He was building something real, and with each passing week, his confidence grew. In the office, Alex was respected. He wasn't just a new hire anymore, he was someone who added value. He became involved in important projects, contributing ideas, and seeing them come to life. Slowly, he realized that his past, working as a waiter, had taught him skills that were now crucial in his new job. Patience, hard work, customer service, time management. Alex found that everything he had done before had shaped him into the person he was becoming. Meanwhile, Thomas was dealing with challenges of his own. The company, which had once been thriving, was starting to falter. Market conditions had changed, competitors were growing stronger, and Thomas felt the pressure. It wasn't just the company's future that was uncertain, it was his own. The weight of leadership began to wear on him. He spent long hours trying to figure out how to fix things, but every decision seemed to only lead to more problems. The stress started to take its toll on him. Thomas had always been a man of action, but now he found himself stuck. One afternoon, as Alex was leaving a meeting, he noticed Thomas sitting in his office. He was staring out the window, deep in thought, looking worn out. Alex had never seen him like this before. Without thinking, Alex walked in. "Hey Thomas," he said, knocking softly on the door. Thomas turned around, startled. "Alex, what's up?" Alex hesitated. "I just wanted to check in. You seem, well, different. You've been working non-stop, haven't you?" Thomas sighed, rubbing his temples. "Yeah. Things are a bit chaotic right now. We've been losing market share. I don't know how to fix it." Alex stood there, unsure of what to say, but then something clicked. He remembered the times he had felt stuck in his own life, unable to see a way out, and he remembered what had helped him get through it. It was his work ethic, his ability to look at things from a different angle. "What if we tried something different?" Alex asked. "I've been thinking about some ideas that could help, maybe a new direction, something fresh." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "You've got ideas?" Alex nodded. "Yeah, I've been watching the market. I've been seeing trends, patterns that we could take advantage of. I might not know everything, but I think it's worth trying." Thomas leaned back in his chair, considering Alex's words. He had always been impressed by Alex's work ethic, but now he was beginning to see a different side of him. Maybe Alex's fresh perspective could be exactly what the company needed. "You're serious about this?" Thomas asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. "I am," Alex replied, his confidence growing. "I think I can help." As the weeks passed, Alex's ideas began to take shape. His fresh perspective, combined with his deep understanding of hard work, started to make a difference. The project he'd suggested was gaining momentum. The company, which had been struggling, began to show signs of improvement. The numbers were looking better, and everyone could feel the shift. Meanwhile, Thomas, who had been at the top of his game for so long, began to see things differently. For the first time in a long while, he realized how much Alex had actually changed the course of the company. He had saved the business from what seemed like certain failure. Thomas couldn't ignore it any longer. The man who had once been just a waiter, someone who served meals and lived paycheck to paycheck, had become the person who had saved him from losing everything. One evening, after a particularly successful meeting, Thomas invited Alex to his office. He looked at him with a mix of gratitude and awe. "You know, Alex," Thomas said, his voice calm but sincere, "I never expected any of this. When I first met you, I didn't know what to think. But now I can't imagine where I'd be without you. You didn't just help me save the company, you changed my entire outlook on things." Alex looked at him, unsure of how to respond. He had never expected any of this. He had come to work hard, to make a better life for himself, not to save anyone else. Yet here he was, doing something even greater than he had ever imagined. "You've taught me something, Alex," Thomas continued, his voice softening. "I owe you more than I can say." Alex stood there in silence, the weight of Thomas's words sinking in. He hadn't just been given an opportunity. He had, in his own way, become the person who had changed Thomas's life.